Hey, second grade. Welcome to Module 8, Lesson 13. Today, we are going to be learning how to relate the fractions of the circles that we've been doing to a clock. And then we're going to talk about telling time on a clock. We're going to tell time to the hour, like you've already learned. But then we're going to remind you how to tell time to the half hour. And then we're going to practice telling time to the quarter hour. So let's talk about what that means. I've noticed that when I use Screencastify, sometimes the things I hold up are backward, so the writing may be backward, but the picture doesn't really matter if it's backward or not. If the clock was the shape of a circle, which it is, then we know that that is what we're talking about here, 1/2. And we've talked about 1/4. I can already see my writing is backward. And we've talked about 3/4. And then, of course, we've talked about the whole thing, and that would be a whole filled in circle. So we want to think of the clock like a whole circle. And when we're telling time, the minute hand, which is this blue hand up here, which is the longer hand, it's going to move around the whole circle. And as it's moving around the whole circle, the hour hand, which is the red hand, only moves like from one big number to the next big number in the same amount of time that it takes this minute hand to go all the way around the circle. And I'm sure you already knew that, but just to review. Okay, so when we look at this clock, anytime the minute hand is pointing straight to the 12, that's what, when we say on the hour or we say o'clock, that's a whole hour. That's sort of like the beginning of the hour, the very first minute of the hour. And then you look at the hour hand, and here it's pointing exactly on the 7. So we know that that is exactly 7 o'clock. Now, when we talk about a quarter of an hour, we want to think about a quarter, which when people say a quarter, they mean a fourth, right? Because there are 4 quarters in a dollar. So a quarter of an hour is the same as 1/4 of an hour. So it's that much time. So if we were to move this minute hand, that fraction of the clock, now it has been a quarter of an hour or 1/4 of an hour. So we would read this. You have to look at the position of the hour hand here. It's kind of tricky to explain. This has moved 1/4 of the way toward the next hour. So it's not exactly on the 7 anymore. It's 1/4 of the way toward the 8. And this minute hand here is 1/4 of the way around the clock. Now, just to review, each one of these little dots is 1 minute. So this was 7 o'clock, 7:01, 7:02, 7:03, 7:04. And when we get to here, we're at 7:05. And remember, you count around the clock these big numbers, 5, 10, 15. So this is 7:15. And this is, some people say it's a quarter past the hour because it was back here was the hour. So we're a quarter past the hour. Now, when you think about fractions again, if you want to think of 1/2 of the clock, 1/2 of the clock, if you were starting from here, from back at the hour again, and you traveled halfway around the clock, you've traveled 1/2 of an hour. And in 1/2 of an hour, if we count by fives, you've got 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30 minutes. So if 30 minutes has passed, if we are 30 minutes past the hour, some people would say we are half past the hour. Some people would say we are halfway until the next hour also. Okay, so sometimes people are looking ahead to the next hour, but this would be 7:30, or we would probably say 7:30 because it's 30 minutes past 7 o'clock. Look what has happened with the hour hand. I used to have such a hard time with this when I was in second grade because I would always forget that when I drew 7:30, I would forget that the hour hand is not directly on the 7. The hour hand is halfway between 7 o'clock and 8 o'clock because we're halfway around the hour. Now, the next thing that's going to happen in this hour is, remember how we learned about 3/4 of a circle? 3/4 of this hour are going to pass by. So we're going to move our minute hand now to where it has gone 3/4 or 3/4 away around the hour. So now, for those of you who are thinking digital world here, you're thinking 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45. So you are thinking it's 7:45. But remember, some kids would look at this too quickly and say it's 8:45 because they see that that hour hand is closer to the 8 than the 7. But see, that's not how that works. It's always 7 something until it's all the way on the 8, and this is up here at 8 o'clock. So see, we are 3/4 or 3/4 of the way around the clock, and this hour hand is 3/4 or 3/4 of the way from the 7 to the 8. So now we are at 7:45. Some people would be looking ahead to the next hour and they may say it's 1/4 or it's 1/4 till. And what they mean is only since 3/4 or 3/4 have passed, there's only one more quarter until the next hour. So it's 1/4 till or 1/4 to. There's all these ways that people, when they describe time, that they say what time it is. And so it's important for us to learn all of these different sayings and ways of telling people what time it is. So I've linked up this virtual clock in your lesson today. And so you can use it if you would like to check your work, because what you can do is see how we know this is 8 o'clock, right? But after I've used my brain and figured that out, I'm going to go over here to show, and it's going to tell me that it is in fact 8 o'clock digitally. So what you could do is, if you want to, on your paper, look at the time, and then when you're sure you've got it and you write it down, put it in over here maybe on this virtual clock, and make sure you're right. Okay, if you're not right, go back and figure out, what did I do? How did I make a mistake? Okay. And so that's going to get you through the first page of your problem set. The other thing that I made today, because I think it's important sometimes to actually make something to really understand it, not just do it on a virtual platform, but to get to make something. I linked up the paper clock in your lesson. So if you've printed, let me maximize this here. There we go. If you've printed, then you have your circle like this, okay? That's your clock. And then you have your 2 hands, and you guys aren't going to believe this. Normally at school, I have like a box of 500 of these things called brads, and they're that little coppery looking thing that you stick through, and it's round on top, and then you bend it back, and then your hands would go on the clock. Well, I'm home and you're home, and I bet you're not going to be able to find one of those. But I found a hack. After messing around with a paper clip, we have this drawer in our kitchen that I bet you all have too. We call it our junk drawer. And in the junk drawer, we have all kinds of weird little things. And in that junk drawer, I found a screw that must have come out of something, and we didn't know what it went to, so we just threw it in the junk drawer. So I got my screw out and I stuck it through the center of my minute and the hour hand. It's just sticking through. It's loose on the back, okay? So, I don't even think it matters if your minute hand's on top or your hour hand's on top. And then what you do is you take the screw and you stick it through here. And then it was helping me because I was able to hold on to it through the back. And now your hands will spin. And you can practice telling time on this too. So this is another fun way if you want to practice your time. If you want to get this thing labeled correctly, let me take out my hands for a minute so I can show you. You can take this And it really doesn't even matter as long as you have one of these vertical lines coming from the center straight up to the top. That's going to be your 12 o'clock. So I'm going to write, let's see, I'm going to put my 12 just below that line right here. See? And then after I get my 12 on there, I always, for some reason, I always go straight down and I put my 6 on here. And then I come over here and I put my 3. And then I put my 9. And I always do this first, I guess. I don't know why. And then I go through and I fill in the rest of my hours. 1, 2, 4, and 5, 7, 8, 10, and 11. So now I have all my hours on there. And this is just a fun little thing now that you can do. You can practice. I would recommend you practice a little bit every day. So I can say, okay, Dad, Mom, Grandma, somebody, quiz me, make some times, and then let's see how fast I can guess them. So what time is this? 9 o'clock. Okay, make it hard, make it hard. What time is this one? Let me see. Okay, get mine. Okay. What time is it? Make it hard. 9:15, right? And so sometimes my family, I remember when I was a kid, we would practice with these kinds of things and make it be like a little, like some kind of game or something. So that's something fun you can do with this clock. The other thing, boys and girls, I would recommend you do, I went to Target. It's upstairs right now, hanging on the wall outside my girls' bedrooms. But I went to Target and I thought it was really important that we had at least one clock that looked like this in this house. But sometimes it's really hard to find a clock with all of the numbers. We had one that had the Roman numerals because that looks fancy. And then sometimes you have ones that don't have all of the numbers because that looks fancy too. But I found a cheap one. It was like $6 or $7, I think. And it just has a little battery and it has all of the numbers big. And so my girls have one of those outside their bedroom. And so that way they get a lot of practice with looking at this kind of clock too. And that will help you get better at telling time on this clock, because that's the only way really to get better is just to practice. So you have this, you have your virtual one, and I've linked up a fun telling time game from ABC. So let's get to it after you get your 2 problem set pages done. And let's get to work today, okay? I will see you next time. Bye.